Well, it's a tragic moment, but it has to come. It's time for the very last presentation of Digital Innovators Summit, 11th edition, 2018. So no pressure at all on our last speaker to be really interesting. Unfortunately, it's a great topic. It's an excellent story to hear and a brilliant way to close this summit. Please welcome the President of the National Journal, Kevin Turpin.
I'm so happy to be with you all today, I come to you from Washington, D.C., where I run a B2B publishing company called National Journal. We're part of the Atlantic Media Company family. I think a lot of people probably know our sister publications a lot better, the Atlantic magazine, as well as Quartz. But I will jump right in to the presentation, because I know I'm the only thing standing between you all and flights or any post-event plans. So I thought I would start this with explaining what is National Journal. Again, we're a B2B publisher based out of DC. What makes us unique is our mixture of businesses. We do both journalism where it's print and online, as well as research, and we also have a consulting division. I really think of National Journal as much more of a holding company now than it is as strictly a media company. Why this is interesting is we got here by doing a pretty big pivot of our business over the last 7 years, and that's really the story I want to tell today. So, just to start with that story, I thought it would be helpful just to talk about what we used to be. So what we were in about 2010 was traditional publisher. We had 3 publications. We actually sold subscriptions to all 3. And they were premium subscriptions. We sold our subscriptions for between $2,000 and $7,000. And also, we had a live events business. All of our publications also were supported by advertising. So we had a nice mixture of a business model going already. However, during this period, our revenue mix was pretty evenly split between subscriptions and advertising. Advertising was about 40% of our revenues. Subscriptions was 60% of our revenues. And then we had a small percentage dedicated to a group that we call advisory services, which were new products that we were experimenting with at the time. In 2010, we actually went through a bumpy moment. And it was actually the start of a couple of years of bumps for us. And what that was driven by is, one, we had a number of competitors coming into our market, and we were an established player. So we were taking on all the risks. We were the ones losing market share. And also the economy, both in the States and worldwide, was still going through a pretty big recession. So our market was receding. So initially in 2010, we responded to these competitive threats in just our market space by relaunching our entire website. We made a pretty significant investment. To that point, we were only a behind-the-paywall publisher. We went, we created a free portion of our website to go along with our paid publishing, and we made an investment in our editorial team to help drive that. However, as we went along, that response wasn't sufficient for us. It didn't turn around the trends that we were seeing. So I like to explain what we were going through at the time using this cookie analogy. As I mentioned, we really had a two-front challenge coming at us. And our market is niche. We serve government affairs executives in Washington. We serve the executive office of the president. We serve Congress. But it's an elite audience, but there's not a huge amount of prospects that we can grow our business with. So when you have a very niche audience, added competition really can start to squeeze your business. And the environment that we existed in before was really one real competitor. The market was more than enough to help sustain us both. We both had nice businesses. We were coming off of a 15-year run where we had both top-line growth and we were very profitable. What we switched to in 2010 was a market that was smaller due to the economy, and we had more competitors coming in. So just investing in a product that really was a commodity at the time in our market wasn't going to turn around, again, the trends that we were seeing, the concerning trends we were seeing in our business. So we faced a decision, and really that decision was, should we put more investment in a market that we saw as a commodity? And this is why I show the image of a horse race. There was a number of horses. You may have the fastest horse, but if you don't, and if you're not winning, your business is going to go through a challenging time. The second decision that we faced, or the option that we had, was we really could take this moment of being in a troubled position and think through, how do we recreate our business to sustain or make it sustainable long into the future? So we chose the latter, and really how we like to talk about this internally is the decision was to be different in kind, not degree. To totally recreate ourselves. So we held a position in the market where we were providing them information and services that they weren't getting from any other business. So before doing this, and this is a real important part of our story, we took a year to do a deep market study. And what we did while we were studying the market is we asked a simple question to current clients, potential clients, former clients. And that was, what was keeping them up at night? What were the big challenges that weren't being solved that they really needed help with? And through this exercise, it helped drive us to 3 challenges that we felt weren't being solved and were things that we were uniquely positioned to solve for our marketplace. And I'll just list those out. One was time famine. And I think this is something that many markets across the media spectrum are facing, that the consumers, our readers, our clients, are being squeezed for time, and there's more information coming at them. And that's what makes the second challenge that we identified a strongly felt challenge, which is a lot of our markets, especially when you're in B2B publishing, are having to filter information for a stakeholder group. And that certainly was the case in the government affairs community. And then the third piece here was identifying and employing best practices. Anytime you're in a space where your resources are receding and you're being asked to do more, you're going to think through, what's the best way that I can be getting my job done? So by first identifying the challenges that our market was facing, and then responding with products, we actually created 2 new revenue streams for our business. One was, and I'll briefly go through these, one was creating PowerPoint slides for our marketplace. So government affairs executives were having to do more and more presentations back in their home offices, and they weren't very good at doing them. And it also was taking a lot of time for them to get them done. So we actually took the burden off of their plate and started creating slides on what was happening in Washington, political forecasts, legislative forecasts, et cetera. And they could just come download them from our website and actually plug them right into their own presentations, which ended up saving them tons of time throughout the day and made us very relevant to them. The second thing that we created was our research division. We started going out and looking for the best practices on how they could get their jobs done. Just pausing quickly on this slide, the important piece here is we listened to the market first and identified challenges before we created product. I think the mistake a lot of publishers make, and in fact a lot of businesses make, is they create the product first. They create the magazine, the website, or whatever service that you're creating to serve your market, and then they go search for the problem that it can solve. You're in a much better position if you identify the problem and you get the problem right, and then you start creating product to solve the problem. More flexible. If you get the product wrong, at least you know the problem, and you can go on to the next version of the product. So in our case study, we still had our existing journalism. And this was really our brand ID in the market. And we couldn't make many drastic changes to the journalism because it's why our customers subscribed year over year over year. So the customers that stayed with us through this competitive transition and this challenging transition still greatly valued what we were doing in the journalism arena. So our view was, let's package the new services that we created with our journalism and create a new package that grounds the journalism now in a different in kind value proposition. So when they think about National Journal, they not only would continue to think about the great journalism that we were providing both online and in print, but they would begin thinking about the different in kind services that we were providing for them with that journalism that built on the brand that they had grown to know and trust. We did this through packaging. We actually didn't launch the services out as separate businesses. We layered them in with our existing services and actually got price increase from our customer base by creating more value for them. So once you create this relationship of listening and responding, it actually leads you to being able to grow your business in ways that you weren't thinking about when you first started in that process. So our clients really valued that we came to them and asked them, well, what are the big challenges that you're facing? And then we created solutions for those challenges. And then they started proactively coming to us and saying they had other challenges that weren't being solved by anyone in the market, which led us to new businesses. One challenge that we identified was they were having trouble tracking their reputation within Washington, D.C. Another was they were being asked more and more to map out influence when they were thinking about the policies that they were advocating for in Washington. We responded to both of those challenges with new businesses that we actually launched separately from our core business, and they created new business lines that are still growing to this day for us. So one thing that you haven't heard me mention over the last about 10 minutes was our advertising business. Unfortunately, our advertising business remained challenged throughout the years that we were launching new businesses and really stabilizing the subscription side of our business. We came to a point where we had two different businesses that were operating within National Journal, and they were going in opposite directions for us. Our advertising side was a declining business for us, and our research and advisory services and our subscription side was now growing again. This really created a moment where we had two decisions to make. One was, do we make a big investment in the advertising business, again, to try to fight off the competitive threats that we were seeing? Again, I'll mention that this was a commodity space for us. So with making this investment, we weren't guaranteed to then reach a point where we were different in kind. And the second side was we had a successful business that was somewhat subsidizing losses that we were seeing on the advertising side. And did we want to just put all our investment in a business that we really felt could grow in the future and put all of our organizational attention behind that too? And we ended up having to make a tough decision, which was the latter, where we closed down almost 95% of our advertising operations. We also closed down our live events business, and we pivoted the business to totally focus on our subscription and advisory services sections, again, because our belief there was this is how we were going to get sustainable growth in the future. So what were the results of this transition? And really, to give you a timeline, this was happening over a 5 or 6 year time span for us. Well, on the top line, we made the decision on our advertising operations in 2015. We definitely felt some of that, and that was more just we took a brand hit. We made a big announcement that we were closing portions of our business down, and that's always going to be a risk for your financials. And we did see that in our top line. But you'll see we got the top line growing again quickly in 2017, and it's going to grow again in 2018, and we're on track for that. And then you'll see what happened to our bottom line, where we grew pretty significantly. And you'll see in 2017 and 2018, we flattened the growth there. We've done that intentionally because we're putting investment back into the business to drive some top-line growth for us both now and in the future. So this is a quick slide just to see the different businesses that we've launched, again, over the last 5 years. The red boxes can show you that we went through a pretty strong period of innovation. And I'll go back to revenue composition. You'll see with our revenue composition how drastically it changed for us. We went from, again, 40% advertising, 55% subscriptions, 5% other, to 3% advertising, 31% subscriptions. And the new businesses that we've been launching over the last 5 years now are the primary drivers of our growth. And we really believe that we now have a platform for future growth, both through continuing to innovate in our current market and then to expand our market to get out of the niche space that we're in. So just to wrap up now, there are a couple key lessons that we learned through this journey. The first is respond to competition with innovation. Use tough moments to really think about how can you create new products to add value to your market. The second piece there is listen to your market. Always listen to your market before launching new products and before acting. Ask them what their challenges are, and then once you identify those challenges, seek to ground your value proposition in a different-in-kind proposition. Build on the earned trust and continually innovate. Don't stop. Once you identify one thread, pull on the other threads that you can be creating value for your market for. And then lastly, focus. Focus your business on growing propositions. So that is the end of my presentation, and happy to take questions if we have time.
Kevin, thank you for that. Questions from the floor. As always, I have one of my own, but if you'd like to raise your hand and get one in now, feel free. I guess my question, and it's a fairly big question.
Sure.
Now that you've made this fairly substantial pivot and advertising is now a relatively small percentage of your total business, are you still a media company?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes. Our journalism still is an incredibly important part of our brand. We still have a team of journalists that do great work for our market. But I like to think of ourselves as at our foundation, a media company, but we also now are a research and consulting company as well. So that's why I call us more of a holding company of different brands and businesses than a pure media company now.
That makes absolute sense. Thank you. Any more questions before I ask you then to thank Kevin very much? Thank you.
Thank you.